Well, with all these video game expos and game stores that you're going into, there's all these games piled up on shelves and you don't know what to grab. You've heard of the Mega Mans and Castlevanias, but what about some of these other games? They've got to be pretty decent. At least some of them, right? How are you feeling? You got John Riggs here. Love doing this series where I recommend one game across 10 different consoles. That is to say, if there's a pile of Genesis games, check this out. If there's a pile of Nintendo games, check this out. Yeah, something like that. Starting off with one of my nostalgically favorite games for the Sega Genesis. The game's called Shadow Blasters from SEGA's creation. Now, if you have a Sega Genesis and you're collecting for it, you don't quite know what to grab, anything from SEGA's creation is probably gonna be pretty decent. I like this game quite a bit because my next door neighbor and I used to play it pretty regularly. Now, it may not be exactly on par with the tight play controls and ability of a Shinobi, for instance, but it is super, super good. You got 4 characters you can choose from, and each one represents a different element. And then from there, it is kind of your basic, you go through the stages, you can jump and attack, and then different characters have a different powered up attack as well as a special thing that they can do. They all play pretty much the same, but it's more on preference of maybe what your favorite element is, I suppose, in a game like this. I know I had a blast playing it. Get it? Blast? Because it's Shadow Blasters? Blast? Anyway. Super fun. Definitely doesn't get a lot of love, but I definitely wanted to highlight it. Moving on to the Super Nintendo, we have COMBATRIBES. This game was one of my favorites in the arcade. Well, it takes that side-scrolling beat-em-up style, like a Final Fight or a Streets of Rage, but it's more room-based. Like, it's just like you're in the stage. You can just move left and right until all of the people are gone. What I liked about this was it wasn't just your basic punch and kick, which of course you have that too, but you could also give them, like, you know, grab them by the ankles, give them a giant swing, basically, or jump on the back of their head once they're down, or start pummeling them once they're down. Well, at least you can in the arcade. A couple of moves and effects, let's just say, have been dulled down a little bit for the Super Nintendo clean audience. But super fun in the arcade, and it plays very, very well on the Super Nintendo as well. A game like this, fun as a 1-player, but even better as a 2-player. My friends and I would rent this pretty regularly back in our high school days. Different stages might have different enemies as well, and it's kind of fun to see where you're going next and what enemies will be there next. And each one has a final boss that'll, you know, make it so you can move on to the next stage. Super fun game. I do like this game quite a bit. I honestly didn't know how well Atari 2600 would be received in a series like this, but when everyone talking about Oink in the last video, let's do some more 2600 games. This one's called Demon Attack. In Demon Attack, my story behind this was my father came home, my dad came home with like 8 brand new Atari games. And this was rare for us because this came from a time when I might get a game for birthday, I might get a game for Christmas, and then with the Atari 2600, it was kind of like, well, whenever, maybe if it's on sale. Well, during the crash of 1983, my dad came home with a pile of games. They were all probably just, you know, $1 or $2 or something like that. And one of the games happened to have been Demon Attack. And it was the game I played the most of those other games. I don't even remember what the other games were. I think one of them was Atlantis, but this was the one that I played the most. A little like a Space Invaders, kind of. It only has 3 enemies on screen, but when you eliminate one, then, you know, a backup one comes into play. And then once all of those enemies are gone, then it moves on kind of to the next phase where there might be different enemies might have different attack abilities. These games were a dime a dozen back in these days. Well, I mean, quite literally during the liquidation stock. But this one just seemed to have stood out among others, and I think other Atari collectors would agree. If you're collecting for Atari 2600, you don't have this one, I would recommend you check out Demon Attack. And really quickly, have you played my game Yeah Yeah Beavis 2? It's on Dreamcast, it's on NES. It's also available on Switch and Steam. If you want to play it for free on Switch or Steam, I'm going to be flashing a code on screen in the next 30 seconds. Because along with these great video game recommendations, I also want to recommend Factor. Well, it's just about my favorite thing in the world. Fresh, never frozen, prepared by chefs, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your front door. And 2 minutes in the microwave, all of them, just 2 minutes in the microwave. That's it. You know, especially if you have kids, summer gets super busy, you don't want to cook, you don't even want to turn the oven on. These are perfect for this. And I love the fact I can leave some at work, so I don't have to worry about it. In fact, let's go there now. This right here, vegan mushroom masala, onion risotto. I'm not even vegan conscious. Conscience? I'm using my microwave here because my microwave at home is disgusting. But 2 minutes in the microwave. No way are you ready for this reveal. Oh my God. The risotto. Really gonna put a green bean in there. One bite and everything. These have no right to be as delicious as a 2-minute microwavable thing. I'm not just saying that. I would legit order this at a restaurant. It's so good. And these smoothies rule, 100% plant-based. Head to Factor75.com right now, use code JohnRiggs50 and get 50% off your first Factor box. And with that, how about a game for the PlayStation 1? Remember when company logos could look like this? What happened? Well, this game is called Spider the video game. Spider the video game. It was one of the first games I remember seeing on the PlayStation 1 that was a 2D side-scrolling game, but not really. I think they kind of call this 2.5D. I mean, it's still a 2D game, right? But because the screen rotates or can, it makes it kind of 3D, but you're still kind of, you know, moving left and right and stuff like that. And it just looked cool, and the fact that you play as a spider was even cooler, I think. Bunch of stages to go through in this game, a killer soundtrack, one of the most underrated soundtracks in PlayStation 1 history, in my opinion. It's just fun, and it just looks cool. And the fact that you play as a spider when you're crawling up things and crawling upside down and stuff like that, too. What a fun idea. What a great game. A little bit earlier of a game, I think it came out in '96 on this one. It came out about a year after the PlayStation 1 came out. So maybe a little bit on the undiscovered side of the PS1 collection. But check out Spider. I think it's a lot of fun. What, Donkey Kong for the Game Boy? I'm actually going to talk about this? Well, yeah, because I'm learning and discovering that a lot of people haven't even tried Donkey Kong on the classic Game Boy. And this game is also Super Game Boy enhanced. So if you have a Super Game Boy and you're playing it through your Super Nintendo, you know, then it's going to have, you know, extra colors, maybe even, you know, quality sound. And trust me, I was a late bloomer to this game too. I did not play this game when it first came out. I came into it later. And when I did, I kicked myself for not playing it sooner. I love the fact that this game starts out with the classic Donkey Kong stages. Now, you're still using the new control style and everything like that, which you learn later, so never mind the stuff I'm doing. I didn't know about all this until, you know, there's little tutorials later saying, hey, by the way, you can also do, like, these little backflips and stuff. But I was like, oh, how fun. You just go through the classic Donkey Kong stages, and when you complete it, or complete the 4, that's when the real game kicks into play, where you have these stages where you have to pick up the key and go through the door. And there's going to be some extra items you can get along the way. Those are going to be bonus, you know, extra live chances and stuff like that too. Quick, fun, puzzle platforming style stages. There's going to be a bunch of them. Fun to see what you can do, where you can go, how to get through the stages. Got to make sure that key, you got to grab that to go through the door. There's even boss battles in this game as well, where you're fighting Donkey Kong on Donkey Kong's terms. It's usually the case, right? I know it is a Nintendo IP, and it's Donkey Kong of all things, and you play as Mario of all things. But this game is my favorite game for the Game Boy, and if you haven't checked it out yet for any reason, look into it, man. I've only done a couple of these videos, but haven't talked about anything for the Game Gear, and one of my favorite puzzle games for the Game Gear is Baku Baku Animal. Now, this game is probably available on something else too, but I know it from the Game Gear. Well, at first glance, yep, it's a puzzle game. It's a Puyo game, it's a Tetris game. It's not Tetris, it's not Puyo, not so much. If anything, it plays a little bit more like a Pack Attack, if you ever played Pack Attack, but let me explain. So you have fruit or animals. That's what you're dropping down, fruit or animals, and you have to match the animal with the fruit. And when you do, the animal will eat the fruit, and that's how you make those pieces disappear. Simple by design, but man, I love playing this game still today. This game, like Puyo, the concept, what you want to do, because you're also battling against the computer here, the idea is to stack them tall and proud, but then look for those combos. Like, you know, set up some combos, so once this thing gets eliminated, it'll drop down, and it'll cause another chain reaction, which will drop down, and it might cause another chain reaction. So stack it tall, stack it proud, and then look for those huge combos, because that's how you can really, you know, destroy the day ruin the day of the CPU next to you. If I was ever to build my own puzzle game and rip off another game, it may be something pretty close to this. That's a compliment to me. I don't know, it sounds like a compliment to me. Baku Baku Animal for your Game Gear. Baku Baku Animal for your Game Gear on this one. Talk about penny racers for the Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 does not lack racing games. Everyone always talks about, you know, that San Francisco Rush, or they talk about the Cruising USA, and of course Mario Kart. But penny racers is kind of fun. Penny racers is a pretty fun, you know, kind of driving game, a little cutesy style, a little top-heavy, where sometimes you turn these corners and you start rolling around a little bit. Little items you can use to take advantage of, you know, trying to get to that first place position. Different camera angles you could take advantage of as well. It, at the end of the day, is just a cutesy, fun, cartoony driving game. But penny racers for the Nintendo 64. Check it out. I'm a huge fan of the Sega Master System. Ghost House was one I enjoyed playing, even though I never had a direction on how to play it. I mean, you know how to play, you don't care how to play it. You can jump and you can punch, that's all you need to know. You can explore. Explore, that's right, you can go in these doors and stuff like that and punch the enemies and move on, and I don't know, I just like exploring. I just like going around. I never tried to, this is one game I've played several times. Of course, I'm talking about it now. You know, I like this game. I've never really tried beating it. I just kind of played it for a while. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. And I like having games like that. I don't need to beat every game I ever play. I just want to have fun with it. And this is one of those games, yeah, you know, maybe one of these days, sure, maybe I'll actually spend the effort, you know, stream it on Twitch or something like that with the support of the people in the comments. But yeah, it's just fun. And Ghost House has existed on other consoles too, but, you know, I have it for Master System, so that's the one to play it on. Well, I do love my NES, and Xerxes is one that doesn't seem to get enough love. And I think it's because the cover for the game, the label art, is just like starry sky background and then the word Xerxes, and it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. But there's a lot going on with this game. Starts out as a platformer, and there's so many doors you can go in, and so many things you can go in, and of course, at the end of the game, like life, they're all trying to hustle you out of your money. Whenever you get anything, there's like, hey, I'll give this for you, I'll sell you this, I'll sell you that. Give me money, I'll tell you information. There's a lot of that going on with this game too. But the game starts out like this side-scrolling platformer, and you're looking for a kind of like mid-boss. The mid-boss is going to give you the star, which is kind of acts as your key to get to the dungeon. In this game they call it like the mechanics. I mean, I don't know. And then it's going to be more side-scrolling. But it's kind of nice because afterwards, kind of in the middle of these dungeons, it turns into a side-scrolling shooter, which is kind of fun. So, you know, it changes up the gameplay just a little bit. Not bad. And they have a little bit more exploration of the dungeons, and you can go up and down these things. There's different doors you can go in, stuff like that. And then it turns into another shooter, kind of, where you have to defeat the boss, the mechanic, they call it in this game. And then between the next world, it turns into another shooter. So it's a little bit of a platformer, a little bit of a side-scrolling shooter. It's a lot of fun. I like this game quite a bit. Again, another game I'm super nostalgic for. Hudson Soft, you can't go wrong there. Xerxes is one you might want to check out. If you haven't done so yet, it's worth looking at. What, a tennis game? I'm going to talk about a tennis game when I'm talking about the TurboGrafx-16, one of my favorite consoles of all time. Of all the great games, I'm talking about a tennis game. Well, let me explain. World Court Tennis, and what makes World Court Tennis so great, believe it or not, is there is a quest mode. It's an RPG mode. Yeah, you can play singles, yeah, you can play doubles, but there's an RPG element. This is years before Golf Quest. Or wait, Golf Story, or other things like that. This may be the first of its style. Of course, you can just take a sport, put it as a video game, and there you go. But this game added a little something special to it. You're walking around, and then when it gets into a fight scene, like a random battle, well, that's when you play tennis. That's when you play tennis to defeat these enemies, let's call them. You wouldn't think it by looking at the cover of this game. You wouldn't even think there's an RPG mode with World Court Tennis. But there happens to be, and that's why I have to talk about this game, because so many people don't know that. Trust me, I'm not the one who gravitates towards sports games either, especially not tennis. But when you add an RPG element to it, I'm interested. Just a few recommendations for you. Make sure you check out the other videos I've done on this same subject, and we'll see you at a video game store or a video game convention sometime in the near future. My name is John Riggs, and I don't have an outgoing catchphrase. I just usually do the how you feeling at the beginning of the videos and call it good.